best,
Especially if you
unless
kind of like gesturing or
like you can lean a little bit. Yeah. I like that.
Welcome back to the Reboot podcast. I'm your host, William Branch.
And I'm your co-host, DeAndre Durham Broomfield, and we thank you for joining us for another episode.
Absolutely. We definitely thank you. DeAndre, you know how they say never talk about politics or religion at the dinner table?
Oh, yeah, I know that one all too well. It seems like one of those unspoken rules,
right?
Just leave it alone, right? It used to be a choice, but now with how everything is polarized and everything is just a debate, no matter where you go, it seems like most of those off-limit topics are the only thing we can talk about, even with your friends, even with your family at the dinner table,
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about. Today, we're talking about how our political stances are affecting or perhaps infecting the modern family unit.
Really? Okay.
Yep. It's no longer just an argument for some. It's an estrangement.
Yeah, separation via words.
Yeah.
Simple disagreement being the thing to separate a family or a relationship of any kind usually is a pretty bad start to something that's supposed to go on much longer. It is supposed to be a better relationship, especially if it can cut off just from a bad conversation. But I think we should talk about how we can navigate through that, right?
Absolutely.
So I think the biggest impact we're seeing is the generational divide, right? We have baby boomers and Generation X parents who grew up with one set of economic or social realities and had to come up a certain way, with their millennial or Gen Z kids who are facing completely different challenges trying to survive the current issues of today. We may have gone through different things at different times, but here we are trying to figure out how we're supposed to work together in a time that's 100% different than anything that we've ever dealt with, right?
Absolutely. Those challenges or differences often manifest as completely opposing political views, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like for the older generation, their stance might be tied to their identity.
Oh, yeah, very close.
Yeah. And their work ethic, their, life achievements, so forth and so on. But when we look at that younger generation, I think to me, it's all about survival. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, things like climate change, economic inequality, or, even social justice. For
okay, like an overall type of overarching thing. I feel that it's important to realize that when those views clash, it feels like it's a rejection of the other person's fundamental values, right? It always feels like somebody's belittling the other person. And it's not just their opinion on tax policy or anything like that. I've heard stories of children refusing to come home for the holidays just because of a political post that a parent has posted up at some point. It creates a really heavy atmosphere.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy, man. And it really forces you to ask, are my political beliefs more important than my relationship with my own child or parent? You have to ask that question. It puts the family bond in direct opposition with a moral, ethical stance.
Wow. Yeah. That's a deep question to ask. Man, I can't wait to see where you go with this one. All right, let's get into it.
Right. Absolutely. Let's not forget that the megaphone of social media and all of this is also important as well. You know what I mean? It's an echo chamber, for our own views. And then it thrusts opposing views, often in their most extreme, least nuanced form, right into the living room. For that matter.
Yeah. It puts it to the place where we can't avoid it. We can't just ignore it anymore. I definitely agree with that echo chamber thing. It's definitely like playing a game of telephone. Everybody has an opinion about it, and then eventually it just gets skewed to where we're lost in the plot, right? So before you might avoid a touchy subject at Thanksgiving dinner, right? Now you see a relative's post that's on social media that's charged or contains misinformation, and it's a constant passive aggressive conflict that never gets resolved. It just leaving the tension always there,
Right. And it's funny you mentioned, because that tension, like you said, is always there. It also makes a local or regional issue feel like a national emergency in the household. Like everything is, house on fire.
Mountains out of molehills, right?
Yeah. Every political argument is suddenly high stakes, right? It's an attack on your character, not just a policy disagreement, right?
Yeah, it definitely creates a sense of importance of everything you're talking about, right? And it can affect anyone from friendships to even couples. The political split between a relationship can end the relationship. You can compromise on where you live. You can compromise on your money situation, how you spend it. But can you compromise on human rights or maybe the future of the country? The political has become deeply and irrevocably personal. You know, everything is taken personal because this is how I feel. This is my stance on it.
Right, right. And then oftentimes, no one wants to budge.
Right.
It's my way or the highway, right? And so, how do we reboot this dynamic? It's clear that avoiding the issue is not working anymore, and definitely not yelling at each other. That we're not getting anywhere with that either.
Yeah, it's very hard to catch meaning behind things when the tone is raised. So the key, what I think, is a shift in mindset to seek understanding instead of trying to persuade someone to your side. You don't have to agree with your family member's political stance, but you can seek to understand the why behind it, right? What is the experiences that we've gone through to lead us to this point?
Right. You know what? And DeAndre, that's a great point. And sometimes you have to prioritize a relationship itself. You set a boundary. Maybe the rule is we can talk about this for 5 minutes, or if it becomes disrespectful, we change the subject or even end the call altogether.
Oh yeah, okay. Create rules and boundaries around it. I like that. Just set up a way in a place that's safe for us to have a fair conversation with each other without taking digs at each other. I like that. I think that basis is about remembering the core of the relationship, that the person that you're speaking to is your father, your sister, your spouse, long before they were a member of a political party. That shared history has to count for something. It is an intentional choice to lead with love and curiosity, even when it feels like it's a betrayal of your own principles. Try to take the other person's emotions at heart and lay yours down on the table, and we can get to an understanding.
Yeah, and oftentimes that's hard for some of us to do, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, right?
It can get hard.
It can get hard, right? Yeah. Right. And so like for me, the modern family is being stressed, right, by by politics like never before. These politics are just stressful, right?
Oh yeah.
And so the reboot is consciously choosing empathy, setting firm but loving boundaries, and accepting that you can be family without being politically aligned.
Oh yeah.
So just because our political views are different doesn't mean that we should stop loving one another.
Right. At no point in time, otherwise we go back to the times of the Civil War. We don't need that split in our nations because it starts with the families. So for our listeners this week, let's take a chance to take a breath. Let's talk to that person in the family or maybe even a friend where your political belief doesn't match, right? Let's just speak with them, figure out how do we get to this point? What is it that makes us come to an agreement to it? Maybe just understand what it is that got you to the point to believe what you believe.
And let us know how it goes out there, right? You can find us at the Reboot podcast and maybe leave us, something describing some of the things that you may be, going through or interested in us talking about. And with that, we want to thank you for, listening in. And I'm your host, William Branch.
Yeah, and I'm your co-host, DeAndre Durham Broomfield. Thank you for tuning in this week. Make sure you check us out on YouTube Shorts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Make sure to have an amazing day. All right, have a good one.
Have a good one.